Welcome everybody.
Oh, it's okay.
We're getting ready to start with our lecture panel program today. So you're welcome to people can keep on coming in. We're glad to have you. Today we have a panel discussion with Elders in Action. Elders in Action has been around a long time, engaging seniors and informing them and educating them about all kinds of things. So they're a great group, has been around a very long time, and they've got a great panel discussion going on here today. So I know most of the people in the dining room today, but for those who I don't know, my name is Paula Stewart, and I'm the manager of the center here, and welcome to our center. People always ask us about our lunch program because it's pretty renowned. We have our own chef here, and we serve lunch Monday through Fridays, and the meal is $4, and we also have a reduced lunch program. But our food is made on site, and there is no age restriction. So if you want to come with a grandchild, they can also be welcome. If you're a young adult, you're welcome to come too. So you don't have to be a senior to eat lunch here, but a lot of people love it because the food is so different and just wonderful experience. And we have a newsletter if you want to look at it and pass it on to a friend or a neighbor that you might know that would like to come to some classes. We have a lot of different things going on, and please do admire the work of about 10 local artists that have their first show here at this time. And their group is called the Green Cab. So if you want to look around the building, there's a lot of art in the hallways and other rooms. And you're welcome to look at it and make comments or come to our next opening in August, second Tuesday in August. So with that, I would like to introduce Barbara Bernstein, and she is the moderator for the group today. Thank you.
Hi everybody. I'd like to start by thanking you for all being here today. And I'd also like to thank Paula and the Senior Center for hosting us. We're really happy to be here in Hillsborough. Also the city of Hillsborough itself, they provided us with a small grant, Elders in Action, so that we could put on this program and programs like this. And I'd also like to thank the panelists for being here today and sharing their time and expertise with us. And we're going to start with that. First, I'd like to tell you about Elders in Action itself. My name is Barbara Bernstein. I'm the executive director, and we're a small organization that advocates for older adult issues. One of our programs is the Personal Advocate Program. Brianna Winterborn coordinates that program. And that program matches older adults to volunteers, trained volunteers, to help them through a problem they might be having with the system, or a service provider, or they might just have a problem in their life. They just want someone to help them think it through. When it's not appropriate for volunteers to help an older adult, then we have staff people who are responding to an information and referral line, and will connect you to the appropriate services to help in those situations. And in many cases, it's maybe law enforcement that we might refer you to, and we have a representatives here for that. So I'm going to ask all the panelists to introduce themselves and to say 1 or 2 minutes about the work that they do. First, Ellen.
Thank you. Hi, my name is Clam, and I'm the Director of Consumer Outreach and Education for the Oregon Department of Justice. I travel all around the state and talk every day to mostly older adults about how to stay safe from frauds and scams. And then I work directly with the Attorney General on some of our cases that involve older adults around the state. And we just settled one yesterday that was a fascinating case I'm excited to tell you about later today. I'll save it for the substance of our talk today, but we have some good news related to shutting down a scammer in Oregon.
Make sure we don't have a water calamity here. My name is Marsha Langer, and I'm with the Elder Safe program with the Washington County Sheriff's Office. This is rather a unique program in that it's a county-wide program. So we work with the crime victims, senior crime victims that have reported something, a case to law enforcement, a concern. The type of elder abuse that we see the most of is financial exploitation. So I think we're going to kind of get into that more as we go on.
But one of the things, Paula's checking that sound that we hear.
I thought it was just me.
So I think she just, did you turn it off by any chance by holding it there?
Oh, it sounds like it.
No, she turned it off then.
Testing.
Yeah, there we go.
Here you know. Anyway, so we work with senior crime victims, and we'll talk more about that, but I wanted to say I really applaud you for being here. Oftentimes when I've been to presentations that have to do with financial exploitation, we might have maybe just a handful of folks, and so I appreciate and I applaud you for being here to be proactive and certainly to find what you can do to protect yourself from financial exploitation.
And now it stops. Now it stops. She suggested we turn it on and off. She suggested we turn it on and off. Let me try it again. Okay, let's see if it works now. Thank you.
Hello, my name is Alberto Pena, and I am a personal advocate with Elders in Action. I have the privilege of spending some of my time with a large variety of people of various backgrounds and times in our lives and expertise and so forth, and together we make an array of folks that have the privilege of accepting requests that are made from the elder community to assist in problem solving and life things that go on. So that means that if someone calls in to Elders in Action and says, well, I've got this issue that I need some help with, there's somebody there to provide that help.
Hello, I'm Pat Brady. I'm your friendly neighborhood police officer. Yes, I'm your local police detective. I work for the city of Hillsborough. We have a general assignment unit that we pull from all of our detectives. But I had spent several years working on our interagency fraud team with the sheriff's office. And so unofficially, I kind of have a specialty in the area of fraud. You know, at times I'll carry a caseload somewhere between 30 and 40 cases at a time. And I'd say probably a good third of those deal with financial exploitation of elderly or otherwise vulnerable adults. Other than that, just a variety of different scams and embezzlements and all sorts of ways to rip people off is kind of what I do. So here to answer any questions I can about that.
Great. Pat, since you have the microphone, maybe you'd be willing to talk a little bit about what the main forms of scams and frauds are that you're seeing.
Yeah. Well, it's pretty broad. Usually, a lot of the cases that I see, it's going to be people being taken advantage of by a care provider. Not necessarily like in a facility or anything of that nature. It'll be an elderly person who lives at home, maybe a couple. They're getting up in years and maybe they're suffering from some ailments, Alzheimer's or other sort of ailments that really kind of physically or mentally impair them. And so they rely on someone to maybe come in and help out with their finances, maybe help around the house, and slowly that person, in a sense, envelops that elderly person and makes that person entirely dependent upon them and cuts them off from the outside world and takes control of their finances and exploits them to their own benefit and basically steals the elderly person's money. And then sometime down the road, months, years later, a neighbor, a friend, a family member, somebody finally notices that, hey, something's not right here. I haven't been able to talk to Suzanne in years, because this person, this granddaughter, this daughter, this son, hairdresser, I mean, I've seen them in all different shapes and sizes. They'll come into the house and it's always kind of the same story. It's that isolation and then that control. And somewhere down the road, someone finally takes notice and says something, and it comes to us or it comes to Adult Protective Services, and that's when we intervene, and we come to find out. We start looking at the bank records, looking at the living situation, and that's when we find out that the elderly person had basically over time become solely dependent upon this person, and the person, you go to their bank account and it's all spent for their own purposes. So those are kind of usually what I see. Other than that, it's pretty broad. The scams can range from the phone call. You get a phone call in the night from someone claiming to be your grandchildren or your grandchild, and they're in custody down in Mexico or up in Canada, and they need bail money sent to them, and they might have somebody come online who claims to be a law enforcement official or claims to be a lawyer, and somehow convinces you that, hey, sometimes they'll have enough information about a grandchild, maybe a grandchild that you don't really see a whole lot, and you know that maybe they have some problems or they live a kind of questionable life. And so they have some information enough to make it convincing, and maybe you hadn't seen that grandchild in quite some time, and so it kind of sounds like him or her, so you assume, well, why would anybody lie about this? And so I've seen it many times where people will go out and they'll get money orders, and then they'll come back, they'll get some sort of MoneyGram, or there's other sort of medium that they can use to transfer money. So all I do is I go out and I purchase this money pack or this debit card or this money order, and I wire or transfer that money to these people I'm talking to on the phone, believing that that's my grandson or my granddaughter in Canada or Mexico that I'm trying to save. Those are pretty common. Emails, you can really just keep going on and on. If people, if they can find a way to communicate with you, whether it's email, whether it's phone, whether it's text, whether it's at your front door, if they can find a way to communicate with you and present you with a lie, and if they sense that you believe it, they're going to exploit it. So that's really any of those shapes or forms. So you just have to be skeptical. I mean, I think like President Reagan said, trust but verify. So that's what I suggest you do on pretty much everything. If you don't know firsthand that the person you're talking to is an actual representative of that organization or a member of your family or any of that, just don't trust those emails, don't trust those texts, don't trust those phone calls unless you truly know that's the person you're talking to.
Thank you, Pat. I think that's a really great way of kind of summarizing it. If someone has a way of communicating with you that you don't know, in those three ways primarily that you said, that to be skeptical, exactly. Marsha, do you want to add anything to that question about the main forms of scams and fraud?
Well, I think that I'm afraid to use this.
I think that one of the really great things that our Attorney General's office has done is created the scam alert. How many of you have access to the internet? And Ellen, I'm going to have you talk about that.
Okay.
Great. So we have a scam alert network, and that's a network of about, I think the last time I checked, it's about 17,000 Oregonians. And you can sign up for the alert online at oregonconsumer.gov. It's on everything that was passed out to you today from our office. It's really easy to sign up. We just ask you for your email address. We don't even ask you for your name. So, and we're not going to sell your information. We're not going to share it. But what we will do is send you maybe once a month, maybe twice a month, maybe once every 3 months. We'll send you a short, quick email with information about the latest scam or the latest fraud, or in the case of the one we issued yesterday, the latest big settlement that affects Oregon consumers. So earlier in my introduction, I mentioned a big case that we've been working on, the Attorney General and myself and a bunch of our lawyers. And this case involves a scam that originated out of White City, Oregon. It was a nationwide scam. A group of 19 companies, 9 individuals, they were sending these invoices for magazines all across the country. Maine, New Mexico, Michigan, everywhere. And for years they did this, and they were scamming people out of money because What they were saying in this solicitation was they were offering the lowest newsstand price. But in some cases, the price was double or triple for these magazines or newspapers. And so we settled with them yesterday for $3 million and some change. And some of that money is going to be used to pay back victims of this scam. So sign up for our Scam Alert Network so you can find out about things like that. So if you have been a victim of a fraud or a scam and you get something like this in your inbox, we're asking you to contact us if you think you've fallen victim to this scam, because guess what? We have some money to give you and we want to give it to you. So Marsha makes a great point. Stay alert, stay informed, and the best way to do that is through the Scam Alert Network.
Yeah, I think I know we're doing pretty good. We're waiting to knock water over up here.
So one of the things I will say is scammers, you know, generally it's wire money. And when you wire money, it's like sending cash. You know, bottom line, when you wire money, if it is a scam, you're never going to see that money again. There's just no way to track it. But the other thing is, you know, I was thinking about a lady not too long ago that lived not that far from St. Vincent's Hospital. She lived by herself. Her husband had died a couple years earlier. And somebody called her and said that they had that she had won a prize, a lottery prize. And she didn't even really want this money that she was going to get for herself. She really wanted it for her son. But her son lived out of town and she was somewhat isolated. So these scammers, they'll sell their lists. So not only was she getting one call saying send money, wire money, wire money, she was getting up to 10 calls a day. So what happened then is she was probably out about $80,000. What happened then is her son came to visit her in town, because as I said, he lived out of town, and he said, we are going to get rid of this landline. We are going to get you a cell phone, and I don't want you to tell anybody what your phone number is. So what was happening, if you go on the internet, you can find out a lot of information. So these scammers were calling her neighbors and asking the neighbors, can you get me her new phone number? Well, that was very worrisome to the neighbors. Well, the neighbors didn't do that. So then what happened is these scammers were getting taxis and pizza delivery people to come to her house and then saying, when you get there, find out what her number is and I'll call you back. Well, she never reported this to law enforcement. Her son doesn't really know what's happening with these scammers and the pressure that they're putting on both her and her neighbors, but it was a pizza delivery driver that called law enforcement. So scammers will go through, I mean, once they've got you on the hook, they don't care if you have to borrow money. They don't care. I mean, they just want more money, and whatever you give will never be enough.
Alberto, will you talk a little bit about what you see the current challenges regarding this issue with older adults? What are older adults facing, and why do you think they are victimized in this way? So what kind of issues are you seeing out there that make them targets?
What kind of issues make older adults targets?
Thank you.
Oh boy. I think that one of the places of our vulnerability is the fact that we're not a moving target. We're pretty stable. We're likely to be near a telephone or a computer terminal or in front of a TV screen while the non-retired people are running around doing other stuff. I've noticed that when there's 20 calls coming in, it's at those hours. My personal name for the behavior out there is what I call predatory marketing. It's not stuff that is in and of itself fraudulent. It's legal. Somebody wants to sell us something. And they have somewhat distasteful, perhaps even shady ways of getting to us. The computer says, press 1 to get your coupons. Press 2 to get your name on the contest, those kinds of things. So you press 1 and now you're talking to some guy somewhere that wants your phone number and your address and your social security number and your Visa number and there it starts. So I think what happens is that in our culture we get so much of this stuff that we become desensitized to it. I was sitting at the table just a little while ago talking to some folks, and one of them asked the question, why is it that so many people who are pretty smart get caught up in that stuff? Well, my opinion is that if the whole culture is a little bit shady in its marketing to begin with, and you get a whole lot of it, well, what that does for us is it raises the threshold of what we're going to be cautious about. And when that threshold gets raised, we're not going to say, wait a minute, that one is not right. Because the one before it, that was not necessarily a scam, sounded pretty similar. So my opinion, therefore, is that us old people are actually pretty smart. And what we have to be cautious about is not only those top-of-the-line scammers, but all of these kinds of marketing attempts that are made on us on a regular basis. So that when the guy comes to our door, for example, selling us a new concrete walkway, we're not so attuned or conditioned that we're going to take him seriously.
Thank you, Gilberto. That's really great. Can somebody speak to how this issue may have changed over the years? How has it always been so prevalent? Has the targeting of older adults always been so at this level? How has it changed over the years?
Well, first of all, you have an elderly population that's increasing, so of course that's just more opportunity right there. And I think what Alberto had said about accessibility is really right on the money. Not to say that retired folks or elderly people don't do anything, but your place of business a lot of times is around the house. Doing stuff around the house and then going out for errands and then maybe going on vacations or whatnot. So accessibility is definitely a key factor, along with you guys you got money. I mean, you're a definite source of money. I know that there's Social Security, pensions, houses, equity in your houses, credit cards. You're probably gonna have good credit. You're gonna have money. So you have money and accessibility. You're an ideal population target. But like I said, it has nothing to do with are you less intelligent than somebody else? I've seen scammers affect anybody. I mean, I've seen them steal $750,000 from a senior, comptroller at a major industry. So I've seen these really smart people, give away big sums of money over and over again. It just happens. We just have to you have to learn from our mistakes and move on. The things that I think that makes it more, going back to your original question, you have a larger elderly population, and we've got more ways to connect with one another. That's really, I think, what it comes down to. I can connect to you all sorts of ways. I mean, we're all connected right now. Probably many of us have smartphones. You got email at the house. You got the TV going on. You got 24/7 coverage on your TV, your telephone. So it's connection. And it goes back to accessibility. So you have a population that's more accessible, and they got money.
Thank you. Would anybody else like to speak to that? The why?
I think sometimes too that when seniors have been scammed, they're not forthcoming in reporting that to law enforcement. Instead of thinking, shame on you for doing this to me, the thought frequently is shame on me for allowing that to happen. And scammers, they really kind of depend on that. We know it's said statistically that less than 20% of financial exploitation is ever reported to law enforcement. So, you know, I think probably maybe a younger generation, I think, would be a little more inclined to say, boy, you did this to me, now you're going to pay. So I know that I had an aunt that was scammed, and she was embarrassed. She was embarrassed that that happened. And scams have become so sophisticated that they just, you know, I mean, sometimes things just happen. So there certainly isn't any shame in coming forward if you know, you might be helping somebody else that to prevent them to get in the same boat. So I think it's very important that we report these scams when they happen to us.
We're also going to get to what to do to protect yourself and resources of help. So we'll get to that in a little bit. But I'd like, Ellen, would you speak to a little bit to the question of what is financial abuse? What is a scam? What is a fraud? How are all these things different?
Oh gosh, that's a big question. So what are we talking about when we talk about financial abuse? What are we talking about when we talk about scams and fraud? Financial exploitation is a term that's defined in state statute that relates to the abuse of adults, you know, a certain age and over, and that is a 4-part definition. I don't have the exact language in front of me, but it could be something as simple as, you know, I, as an older adult, gave my debit card to my grandson, and I told him to go to the store and buy milk and bread, and he did that, and he also withdrew an additional $600 for his own personal use. That's just one example of that would fit that definition of financial exploitation, which includes a phrase like wrongfully taking funds, attempting to wrongfully take funds. I mean, it's a big definition. But I think today what we're really talking about and what we really want to emphasize is frauds and scams. So when we're talking about that, we're talking about these guys that call you out of the blue. They show up at your door when you're gardening. They send you a suspicious looking, you know, piece of mail like they did in the Liberty case. It looked legitimate. It looked like this was an invoice from a magazine or a newspaper that you have subscribed to for years. And they're exploiting that. And so I think that's really, really what we're talking about today.
I wonder if one of you could also speak to who it is that is doing this, who are doing the frauds and the scamming.
I can talk a little bit about that, and then maybe the police, law enforcement wants to chime in. The vast majority of scammers that we see in our interactions with Oregonians at the Department of Justice are overseas. And a lot of them are in countries that don't like the United States. And so we work with our federal partners to try to get some movement and get those folks brought to justice. And that's very difficult when you're interacting with a country that doesn't really care that American citizens have fallen victim to a scam or a fraud. So that's particularly troubling for us. But we also do see mom and pop scammers, you know, down at the local tow company or the car dealership. But the big nationwide scams, the vast majority of those folks are overseas.
Yeah, you're definitely right. I mean, the international scene as far as fraud is it's all encompassing. The victims are all encompassing. and it really impacts everybody from your, I mean, you see the data breaches on TV all the time. The Archdiocese one that we had a couple years ago, they got the Portland Archdiocese and the Seattle Archdiocese, and a lot of those big data breaches, things of that nature, they'll take all that data and they'll transfer that data usually to Eastern Europe, and you can go onto a website, and it's pretty neat. You can go on this website, and it's out there. It's not really hiding itself. And I can say, you know, if I'm a guy that wants to commit fraud, I can order 100 cards from the geographical area of Hillsborough, and it'll give me all those card numbers, their profiles, and then I can take that information and I can encode that onto some blank cards, and then I can go out and wreak havoc with all that stuff. So that, on a broad scale, yeah, that is really a big concern. But ultimately, you know, who are the suspects? Who are the bad guys? They're really anybody, any age, any shape, any color, any sex. Anybody that comes to you that you don't know, that tries to make you do something that somewhere down in your gut makes you feel uncomfortable, that's what the suspect, that's who they are. If someone makes you feel that way, there's a reason why your gut's telling you that. There's a reason why the hairs on the back of your neck are standing up. You know, it's your subconscious is reading this person. This person wants to harm you. Maybe not physically, but they want to cause no good to you. So if you feel that, you know, it's best to you know, take a break. You know, say, well, hey, you know, let me run that by my friend before I agree to that. Let me check with my son. He's in the construction business. Let me see what he says. You know, don't let someone bully you. And if you want a nice way out, that's a good way. Just say, hey, that's fine. Why don't you come back tomorrow? I just gotta go do something, and call somebody. Just don't be afraid to call somebody and ask for help. Like Marsha was saying, that unfortunately is a big problem, is getting people to actually speak up that they've been a victim of a fraud or a scam. And, you know, particularly, you know, when you see that a lot in the elderly, because they feel that if I ask for help, someone's going to say, well, I'm not capable of taking care of myself. They're afraid of being judged because they feel that people automatically say, because I'm old, I don't know what I'm doing, or I'm not capable. Just, you got to put that aside and realize that there's a lot of people out there that I see people get victimized all the time, whether they're 15, 20, 30, 40, or 50, it doesn't matter. I get scammed. So it happens to any of us. So don't be ashamed about it. Just reach out and ask for help. That's where it really starts.
So you asked me who the scammers are, and I was telling you a little bit about who I think they are and where I think they live. And then I realized as I'm looking down here at my own publication, which is titled 6 Signs It's a Scam. This is hot off the presses. We just finalized this 2 days ago. And I'm thinking now that maybe I want to change the title to 6 Signs It's a Scammer, because that's what we're really talking about here. You know, as Pat said, who are the scammers? They could be anyone. And so that's frightening. That's really, really, really frightening. And who are they going after? You said you've seen 15-year-olds on up get victimized. So how do you move forward in your day-to-day, you know, interactions knowing that? Well, check out the 6 Signs It's a Scam. I think there's lots of really great tips in here about, you know, things to look for, clues, phrases you may hear. Marsha mentioned wiring money. That's the number 4 sign. So take a look at that handout and stay tuned, because I think I might change the header. There's a question, yes. Are we taking questions during, or do we? Okay, yeah.
I didn't get one of those.
Oh, you didn't get them? Oh my gosh. Well, I will hand them out right now.
We didn't have a chance to hand them out to everybody, but, oh, okay, there goes Ellen. I really like what's been said here about maintaining, you know, that sense of independence, and that might be one reason not to seek support or help. But I think at this point, maybe we could shift gears a little bit and start thinking about what the resources are for support and help and steps that people can take to protect themselves. just slightly before we do that, I am sort of interested in if high pressure sales tactics or aggressive sales tactics, do they fall in the category of elder abuse or scams and frauds? Marsha?
What I would say is that if you're feeling pressure, somebody calls, the longer they keep you on the phone, the longer chance they have, the better chance they have of selling you something. So I think bottom line is you just need to be rude. If you know, be rude if you need to be. I mean, that's the bottom line. I mean, they don't want you to hang up. If they're doing a high pressure, just say, hey, you know, send me your information. And I'll look at it, and then you'll probably never get anything in the mail. But I would just say, you know, you're in control of the conversation that you have with people. And if you choose to end that conversation, then just go ahead and do it, even if you have to hang up on them.
Could I ask a question, please? I rely on caller ID on my phone very heavily. And if the message comes up that says private number, I never pick up the phone. That really works good.
And that's a good point. This gentleman's saying he has caller ID, and if he doesn't recognize the number, he doesn't pick it up. You know, the other thing too, people come door to door. If you don't ask for that service, I probably wouldn't buy the service. You know, you can check out Better Business Bureau and a variety of things, but if you need a service, I would probably investigate and be really reluctant of the door-to-door type salesmen that do the high pressure.
With respect to caller ID, you mentioned that if you don't recognize the number, you don't pick it up. I think that that's a good tool, but I will caution you that we've had a lot of scams. As recently as Monday, we started getting calls from Oregonians all across the state who reported to us that their caller ID was displaying 911. And when they picked up the phone Monday morning, the individual on the other line said they were calling from the Oregon Attorney General's office, and there was a warrant out for their arrest, and if they didn't wire money within the next 5 hours, you know, the Hillsborough police were going to come and arrest them. It sounds silly, doesn't it? It sounds silly, but can you imagine getting that phone call and how scared you would be? That is frightening. It's terrifying to people. And they paid it. A lot of them paid it. So I agree that caller ID is a great tool, but I also strongly believe that take a look at these signs. You know, it fits almost all of these, right? It's a phone call out of the blue, right? You didn't think you had a warrant out for your arrest. You'd probably know that, wouldn't you? There's some sort of emergency, i.e. there's a warrant out for your arrest, and they're asking for personal or financial information, right? They want money. And how do they want you to do it? Look at tip number 4. They want you to wire it, right? So this is a great tool to keep this by your phone, glance at it every now and again, because when that phone rings and it's, you know, the office of the Attorney General claiming you have a warrant for your arrest and you're terrified, you might do something like send money because you're not thinking clearly. Yes, there's a question in the back.
I got that call, but it was from Washington County Sheriff's Department.
It sounds like you said that you got a letter just like that from
She got the call.
Oh, she got the call from the Washington County Sheriff's Department.
But that same thing, a
Yep.
warrant for your arrest and
Well, Betty, we knew Betty would be arrested.
You know they never call.
Yeah, right? Yeah, do you call people? Do you it's silly, right?
I'd like to reinforce what Ellen said about the emergency nature of it. If you're getting a call like that, especially if it's related to money, it's from the IRS or something like that, and there's this emergency aspect to it, and suddenly your adrenaline is up and your emotions are up. We don't always think clearly when our emotions are kind of at play. So being able to take time to hang up the phone and talk to somebody, I'm just sort of reinforcing what I've been hearing here today. It's really okay for us to take a moment to breathe and to slow down and to really question what's happening. Let's now just spend the next 20 minutes talking a little bit about the resources and steps for getting help. So what are the steps that people take to protect themselves and to get help, and then we'll talk more about the resources.
Let's just go down the line.
Okay.
You all have something to say about this.
Yeah, so resources available. So I've distributed a couple things for you today. Obviously you have the 6 signs, it's a scam. There's lots of other additional resources on this table. Hopefully you've received a brochure with a picture of a grandson and a grandfather on it. And it says the top 10 consumer tips to protect you and your family. That's a really great tool. It has a lot of important phone numbers in there, including our Consumer Protection Hotline, which is a hotline that's staffed in Salem by 25 plus volunteers. Lots of experience staffing that hotline. A lot of folks like retired law enforcement, retired attorneys, accountants. No, it's that one. Yeah. If you didn't get a copy of it, there'll be more on the table up here. And so I would encourage you to contact our Consumer Protection Hotline Monday through Friday, 8:30 to 4:30. You can reach them and you can ask them any question. Marsha already mentioned the Scam Alert Network. You can sign up for that. Information on how to do that is in that brochure. We also have, Marsha mentioned the Better Business Bureau and how you can search for a business on there. We have a similar tool. I think it's a little bit better. It's all of our complaints against businesses dating back to 2008, and it's our Be Informed database. And again, information on how to access that is in our brochure. And then most importantly, if you've been a victim of a fraud or a scam, we want you to report it to us, so that we can either help or, if we can't help, we're gathering all of that data, and we are doing things with that data. So for example, in 2014, our #1 complaint was the IRS imposter call, right? There's not a lot that we can do about that, unfortunately, as one state. Because as I mentioned earlier, a lot of the scammers, especially the scammers that are making these phone calls, are overseas. So we need as much information from you, even if we as the little old state of Oregon can't do much about it. We're working with our federal partners to bring some justice and to get these folks. So please, please, please do contact us with those complaints. You can file a complaint online, or we can mail you a complaint form. And then typically, what happens in cases where we have jurisdiction and we can do something is we'll send a letter to the business or the entity and say, hey, this consumer complained about something you did. What's your response? And typically the business will say, oh, Oregon Department of Justice. I don't like them breathing down my back. So they'll typically contact the consumer right away and say, in so many words, what do you want? Which is what we want, right? We want you to be made whole. Sometimes they give us the bird and then we have to go after them. That's always fun too. But typically we want them just to resolve it with the consumer. So please, please, please do reach out and give us a call. You have a question?
Yeah, I'd like to know if anybody has heard Office Box Frank 8@gmail.
I'm gonna guess that's
Super Lotto Plus, and I got that message a few days ago.
I'm gonna guess that's a scam. And what you should do in that case, if it was a text message or an email, is you should just delete it. Don't respond, don't forward it, just delete it.
It says, congratulations, your phone number has won $450,000.
Wow.
Super Lotto.
Isn't that amazing? That's so wonderful. I mean,
for claim sent, name, address, telephone number, date, birth, occupation, etc.
oh, actually I would like to see that. So maybe I can take a look at that later, because I occasionally get those messages on my phone, and I have a small child, and I remember when they first started coming, there was one that said I had won a free cruise. And it was like at 2 in the morning and I'd been up all night with the baby. And even though I talked to people every day about how they shouldn't fall for these things, man, I wanted that free cruise so bad. I was like just dreaming for days about what I would do with that free cruise. I'd go all by myself and I'd sit in that room just so quietly. I wouldn't talk to anybody. I mean, can't you just see it now? But that's what they want. They want to get you when you're in a position like that so that you'll engage. And you're smarter than that. So just delete, just hang up, just close the door, just throw it in the trash.
I'll give it to you and then.
Yes, and do that too. Especially if you have a free cruise.
And you might speak from your perspective. So there's Oregon Department of Justice, the APS response, the police response. Yeah.
Pat, you might be a better person to answer this, but I know oftentimes if it's a fraud and you want to report it to your bank, banks will ask for a case number. So I think report it to law enforcement, first report it to your bank, and I think we're probably going to get in on how we can, like credit reports and all that. We're going to get into that yet.
You can certainly touch on it now if you like.
Well, I think that the greatest asset we have is getting our free credit report. And we have the 3 credit reporting agencies, and we are entitled to a free credit report from each one of them. So technically we could get 3 credit reports a year. So what I do is go to one on January 1, and then 4 months later I go to the next. 4 months later I go to the next. And I think that's really a huge thing. Who knows if somebody has gotten your information and maybe they've taken out a credit card that you don't even know about because it doesn't come to your mailbox. So certainly that www.annualcreditreport.com. I'll repeat that again. It's
on this as well.
Yeah, it's tip number 7.
Number 7, okay. So that's key. There's another one that's free annual credit report, but it's not really free. So make sure you go to the annualcreditreport.com. That's huge. And then just mark on your calendar, when you got that report. Question?
Well, with all these hacks that have occurred locally, statewide, whatever, the hacks, the getting into it where they picked up your information, you don't know whether anybody's using it, and you've been offered free credit monitoring for a year. And still, they never tell you how to get that part of it.
Yeah, well, Pat, but I want to say one other thing on this annualcreditreport.com. You are not asking for a credit score. That could cost you. Don't do that. They are going to ask you for your social security number. That's going to be the one time that you're going to want to give it. You can either have that information sent to you online, or you can have it mailed to you. But they will ask for your social security number.
I really like what Pat said. He kind of summarized a bunch of things and let us know that we need to be okay with asking for help. And I reflected on that a little bit and thought, we're kind of busy. The fraud guys are not the only people in our lives. That's not all of what we do. There's a whole bunch of other stuff that we do, and basically these people who want to harm us financially, perhaps in other ways, are more stuff on top of what we're already responsible for in our lives. So, we come over here to this nice place and we have a bunch of folks at the table who give us a whole lot of really good ideas, and we say, well, you know, I'm going to walk away, I'm going to have about 10% of them in my brain when they leave the building, and maybe half of that when they get home. And the fact of the matter is that when I'm feeling a little stressed and overwhelmed, and maybe there's somebody at my door or on my computer or on my telephone that wants to harm me in this way, I really don't know what to do. And I heard Pat say, hey, get some help. But who do I get for help? Let me see. My neighbor's out to work. My kids are out of town. That's easier said than done. Here's the good news. There's an outfit that is your friend who can bring you the help. There's an outfit called Elders in Action. That's us. Where you can call us and talk to Brianna, and you say to Brianna, this is what's stressing me out right now. And she sends one of us, myself or one of the others over, and we can sit down with you, and we can be the sounding board, or the gopher person, or the one who's going to collect the resources that are all up and down this table, but you forgot 6 weeks later, stuff like that. We're available to you to do that. We can be the helper that Pat suggested you call. That's what we do, and we do it well.
Thank you. Yeah, I just want to echo what he said. Yeah, going to like Elder in Action or Elder Safe, I mean, those are great places to turn. I mean, because, yeah, I have a situation with my parents now, and it's a lot of complicated things with Medicaid and Medicare and hospice, and I don't have a clue. And so, you know, I go and turn to somebody like Alberto, and he can help me, or APS, or Elder Safe, you know. So they're a great place to turn to if you have questions. You're an elderly person, you have questions, you're not really sure, go to one of these folks. They're a central hub. Me, the resources I provide are handcuffs and a jail cell. So, but yeah, I mean, that's really what I do.